So, Nico, what did you think of the bio that the PR consultant came up with?
I don't know, Dave. It's punchy, and it's the right speed and content for introducing you to an audience before you speak. But I don't know about the thousands of supply chains part.
I was the one that came up with that line.
He developed the strategy and design for thousands of supply chains. There's no way anybody could develop the strategy and design for thousands of supply chains.
This will be fun. Consider my last corporate position. There were over 600 suppliers, 5 distribution centers, and 600 retail stores. Now, each supplier shipped to at least one distribution center, but almost all suppliers shipped to all 5 DCs. For giggles, let's just assume that each of the 600 suppliers shipped to just 3 distribution centers. 600 times 3 equals 1,800 lanes, or supply chains, right?
Yeah, but you can't argue that each of the strands is a supply chain. It's all just one big chain.
Not a correct assumption, amigo. There was a whole set of strategic commitments made for each of those supplier lines. Gross margin, inventory investment, and targeted revenue commitments drove the tactical design decisions. The commitments drove which flow strategy to employ, and that commitment drove tactical decisions about order frequency, the order size, and the mode selection. Those commitments drove the decisions about what part of the logistics infrastructure to employ. Each strand from the supplier to DC involved at least 2 strategic commitments and 4 tactical decisions. Sales levels and inventory investment, the strategic commitments. Order size, order frequency, mode selection, and the network path, the tactical decisions. All of that was minor mechanics, though, when compared to the doctrine change that had to happen. In the time before I arrived at that company, the default doctrine was all vendor-managed logistics, as in the vendors really made all of the decisions about how and when to ship to us. Order multiples, order size, all dictated. Lead times were all over the place. All of that variability drove our costs through the roof. It made it hard to serve customers. Something had to change for that company to live up to the commitments it made. In 7 years, the company migrated from one logistics management doctrine to a new doctrine. We shifted from a vendor-managed and directed logistics doctrine to a new doctrine of internally controlled logistics. It did not happen overnight. But we looked at each of the 600 suppliers through our network of 5 distribution centers. That's 3,000 inbound supply chains feeding into 600 outbound strands. We had to influence each vendor to comply with the program and answer the key strategic commitments. Based on what could be done, we designed the supply chain for that thread. The design guided the deals required, defined the coordination, tactical and execution work. And that was just my last corporate position. How many different supply chains do you think I strategically and tactically changed before I worked for that company? And the one before that? How many more do you think I have done in the years since I escaped the corporate puzzle palace? Thousands? Tens of thousands?
I concede. You have designed thousands of supply chains. I forgot just how complex logistics and supply chain can be.
The complexity is hidden. That's why you missed it. A supply chain is the network between different companies for production and movement of a specific product or service. The best way to think of a supply chain is the series of decisions and tasks needed to get a good or service from the supplier to the customer. Supply chain management involves the coordination of both internal and external operations. It involves making strategic commitments about the value of the flow, the working capital used to obtain the inventory that you're moving, the cost to move and store that inventory, and the profit of the different internal and external entities in the process. That is a mouthful. Let's break it down into chunks. A supply chain is 1. A network between different companies. 2. For production and movement. 3. Of a specific product. Of a specific product Could that be just a skew? Yes. Coordination between the different business entities requires effort. Each company, each entity has its own set of revenue, profit, and effort, strategic commitments to be made and to maintain. Those strategic commitments affect the tactical options that the company can make. The strategic commitments define the rules for choosing which of the tactical options to deploy and how to coordinate those tactics.